Hello there and welcome back to So Much Game. Thank you for joining me for my stab at playing through Empire of the Sun. It's a Mark Herman design and published by GMT. Empire of the Sun is basically a card-driven strategic look at the Pacific War in World War II. As I mentioned previously, the intro video is not really a theatre I know all that much about, so it should be fun for me to learn a little bit more and also play through the game. I looked through the rules. I didn't really read them in depth, which seems bad, but there you go. But I did peruse them a bit and it looks like a very fun game. So we'll be starting off in a bit, but first I'll give you an idea of how Empire of the Sun plays. Alright, here you can see a few of the counters in the game and also a couple of cards. We're going to be playing, well, I'm going to be playing through the campaign game, or trying to at least, as there's a rampant toddler about who may have other ideas, so we may only get a couple of turns in before the entire board is ruined, and also at some point my wife might want her table back, but we'll give it a go. And the campaign game starts off with a mini turn in which the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor and attempt to conquer as much as possible of Southeast Asia. So that's why those two cards are laid out in front of me. Obviously Empire of the Sun is card driven, so each turn both sides will have a hand of cards which they will use to perform offensives, starting with the initiative player, which in the first few turns will be the Japanese, and then it may swing back and forth. You have a maximum hand of 7 and a minimum hand of 4, and there's lots of things that can alter the amount of cards you get to pick, and we'll have a look at the cards themselves right now. So the core concept is offensives, and each offensive you perform by either using the event that's written down on the card or the offensive value of the card itself. Obviously for these two cards we'll be using the event because they'll never really be used for their offensive card value, as the 1941 turn always uses these two events to kick off the war, basically. As you can see, there's a lot of information that you get per event. The intelligence level is an important thing to note, and other than that it says how many, on this card it has a logistics value, which will also be important. That's basically how many units you can activate for that particular offensive. So you have two choices. You either activate the card as the event card or as the offensive card, and based on that you either use this as the logistics value or you use the logistics value of the event. So obviously if there are low, the cards range in offensive card value from 1 to 3, so if you have some low cards you're not really going to be able to do that much. But with a free card, that means you can activate 3 units plus the efficiency rating of your HQs, which is that little red box with white lettering there. So in this case that would be 6. We'll take a look at some of the counters now to give you an idea of how the units work. There's basically 3 types. You have your naval units, and we'll maybe take some units from the reserves pile. so that I don't muddle up where things are. You have naval units, air units, and army land units. Each of them has a 2 or 3 values at the bottom. From left to right, their attack strength, defense, range, and the same again for this carrier. Most battleships and things won't have the range value at the end, which is that 3 there. They'll just have an attack and a defense strength. But carriers do have the range because that's the range that you can stand off attack basically into a battle hex. In the case of the planes, that's also the range for your hops when you do movement, but we'll see that during the actual turn plays, and I'll explain it a bit more later. They also have an extended range, which is that 4 there. So in this case, it has a normal range of 2 or an extended range of 4. If you attack into a battle hex using your extended range, you halve your attack strength. So in the case of this unit, if it were to attack a battle hex 2 hexes out, it would have an attack strength of 8. If it were to attack a battle hex 4 hexes out, using its extended range, it would only have an attack strength of 4. There are also some air units where that extended range is in parentheses. That implies that they cannot use their extended range at any point during the movement, and definitely not to attack a battle hex. If they do that, they can't participate in a battle hex battle. Another important thing to note is that some units, and definitely a lot of the Japanese units, have a little yellow dot in the left hand corner. That implies that they're pre-war units, which means they start the game off on the board. And I noticed that actually some of the units have it in the right hand corner as well, but basically the yellow dot is important. It means that they can never receive replacements. So if they lose a step, that's it. They'll never get stronger than that again. And if they're completely destroyed, they'll never come back, which makes it quite difficult for Japan because a lot of Japanese units, and definitely their strongest units like their carrier fleet, have these yellow dots on there, and a lot of their stronger starting air fleet units as well. So they really start out with a lot of strength on the board, but it can be ground down over time, whereas the Allies, and more specifically the Americans, have a lot of units, but they also have quite a fair amount of replacements. They start off with very few units on the board, but a lot of units come in as reinforcements. To give you an idea, I'm just going to scoot you over to the reinforcement / turn track, and you'll see what I mean. So, as you can see here, there's a lot of reinforcements coming up for the US, and all of these at the bottom are Japanese units, but clearly a lot more US and Allied units come on the board. Beyond that, the Allies also have significantly more replacements. I've taken a look at the replacement chart, and it's not good for the Japanese. I think on turn 3 and 4 they have a naval replacement, and on turn 11, and that's it basically. That's it for their replacements. Other than that, they can get replacements through cards in the deck. There's a few of those that allow a certain amount of replacements during events and offensives. but they'll pretty much have to rely on what they get and what they already have on the board. Whereas the Allies are really strong in replacements as well as reinforcements. They have roughly 2 ground units and 5 air unit replacements each turn, and then it alternates between a US naval replacement and a China replacement, but they also get an additional US naval replacement if they still have Oahu, which is obviously where Pearl Harbor is. So that means that they can really play very aggressively with what they have, and definitely with their air fleets, which are sort of attack strength wise generally a lot lower than the big Japanese air fleets, but with that advantage that they can take a lot of damage and then be brought up to full strength again next turn. So that's really the US advantage in the Pacific War, which I think makes it rather difficult for the Japanese to properly win. But obviously the victory conditions here are more based on Japan being able to maintain their hold on Japan itself, obviously, and stop the Allies from being able to strategically bomb them and take away the strategic resource hexes, which are very important for them to capture. So if they manage to do those sort of things, they win, even if most of their gains have been wiped off by US and Allied attacks throughout the game. Whereas the US really have to push hard, because by the end of the 12th turn they're gonna have to have wiped out all of the strategic hexes and put bombers in place, B-29 bombers in place to strategic bomb Japan, or they'll have to bomb Japan several times in the last few turns, or they have to actually invade the Japanese home hexes like Honshu and Okinawa and so forth. So that's obviously a slight divergence from the historical result, but yeah, the idea is you can't really rely on the Manhattan Project to succeed in this game, which I suppose historically the admirals and generals in charge would also not have been able to do until it finally succeeded in producing a nuclear bomb. But even then, so they really had to plan for the idea of invading Japan itself to bring the war to an end. Right, scooting you back over to the cards now. So before we get started on mini turn 1, I think we'll just talk about the idea of US and Japanese strategies in this game, as I'm going to be playing both parts. The game actually does come with a solitaire bot, but I'm generally not a big fan of those bots. I mean, they do a decent enough job, but I'm pretty much fine with playing everything myself, really. I don't mind playing both sides, and really, for the most part, I play for the fun of it, so it doesn't really matter which side wins or loses. Now, the Japanese strategy that I'm going to go for is I really have to take the Dutch East Indies as quickly as possible in the Philippines, because at a given point Japan basically gets 7 cards each turn to start with, because they're running on their strategic reserve. But at a given point that runs out, and then you're reliant upon the yellow hexes, which you can probably see one of here. they are strategic resource hexes, and for every 2 of those hexes you get 1 card, to a minimum of 4, as I mentioned earlier. But that means that most of them are located in the Dutch East Indies. You really have to push through all of that, and hopefully before the Americans start getting all of those big reinforcements in, because then I'm going to quite quickly need to turn my air force, well, free up my air force so that it can go towards the Marshall Islands and the Solomon Islands and so forth, to form an air shield against the oncoming US onslaught. On the reverse of that, as the US, you're going to have to be quite aggressive. I'm going to have to use all of those new reinforcements that I get to try and push in and take islands, because the flip side of the Japanese strategic resources, the Americans have a political will track which goes up and down based on countries that are allied to them surrendering, like Australia, for instance, or China, or North India. Well, it's only northern India on the map, but the entire of India surrenders, basically, if the Japanese manage to destabilize it. And the same with China. So if they can manage that, that will take down the willpower a lot. And at a given point, you also lose 1 willpower if you don't conquer a certain amount of Japanese-held hexes every turn. So they're really going to have to be focused on an aggressive attack into the islands first off, and then we really want to push up, take away those strategic resource hexes again, and then try and get within bombing distance of the Japanese home islands, which is easier said than done, obviously, but we'll probably not get that far, as that will probably be the latter turns, unless I play really, really badly as the Japanese, which is also a possibility, but we'll try and avoid that. And the US obviously has the advantage that they have those large replacements and reinforcements. However, a certain portion of their reinforcements may end up being sent to the war in Europe. There's a war in Europe track as well, which can go up and down. It starts off in 0. Basically 0 or anything negative means there's a chance of your troops being sent to Europe to fight, rather than coming in as reinforcements that you can use. And even if you do get the reinforcements, they're also delayed a turn, which is also rather inconvenient. And that means a lot of the stuff that's coming in turn 2 may actually only arrive in turn 3, or may not arrive in turn 3 as it's been sent to Europe, in which case it will come back 3 turns later. That's sort of the basic idea that I have for the strategy. So Americans trying to build a naval and air shield to attack towards the islands of the Marshalls and the Solomons, for instance, and then push into Borneo, Java, and so on. And as the Japanese to really try and crush the Dutch East Indies as quickly as possible, so that I can move over those big strong air fleets that will end up being overextended and can't be given replacements, but so that I can push those over to the islands to really make it difficult for the US to conquer hexes and to run amok, as it were. That all being said, I think we're going to give the first card a go and get started with turn 1, which is December 1941. Like I said, I don't know the Pacific War so well. Obviously, I know that in December the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and everyone declared war on Japan. But to put it really into context for me, December 1941, on the Eastern Front, the Nazi push, the end of Operation Barbarossa, was really spluttering out as it fell short of Moscow. And in the desert, I think, then Rommel would be retreating to the Gazala line, obviously to do significantly better in the following year. But having failed to take Tobruk at this time, I think those are the major events around that period. So that sort of gives it a historical time frame for me, and I know roughly where and when we are in the Second World War. Right, kicking off with Operation Z, attack on Pearl Harbor. So I'll read this out, and the idea is as I read things out and new things come up, we'll explain them, and then we'll have a look at what effect they have, and hopefully that way both of us, you and I, can learn the gaming system. So, Operation Z, attack on Pearl Harbor, says activate hex 3705. That's this one up here, where all the carriers are. CV Akaki, CV Soryu, and CV Shokaku, and the battleship Hiei are all activated. Sorry about that, I just had a little technical difficulty with the camera. But to get back to Operation Z, so the intelligence level here is surprise attack. It says so on the card, which means that defending player, in this case the Americans, don't get to roll to turn that into an intercept. They can't play any cards because they don't have any at the moment. And we'll read on conditions. These 4 naval units, so the carrier and the battleship, cannot be activated again during this turn. Naval units may move 18 hexes. Right, we should really explain some of the movement here. Each type of unit has its own movement rating. A naval ship can move 5 hexes per offensive value, so ranging from 1 to 3. Obviously in this case it would be 3, so that would be the maximum of 15 hexes, which implies that 18 hexes is more than they usually would be able to move at maximum. For air fleets move in legs, which is from one airbase to another, using their movement value, the range that I mentioned earlier. So either the normal range or extended range. Now, one caveat on the extended range, they can use non-parenthesis extended range to move in legs to a hex that is within normal range of a battle hex, and then participate in that battle hex using their full attack strength. To give you an idea, this unit here has an extended range of 4, so it could jump 4 hexes per offensive value of the card, in which case that would be like 1, 2, 3 to here maybe, and then 1, 2, 3 up here, or 4 up here as a second leg, and then it can still do a third leg, maybe down here, 1, 2, 3, 4 to Wenchou. Obviously it'd probably be quicker moving that way, but still, you get the idea. They have to move each leg between 2 air bases that are in friendly control. And then army units, like these ones, receive a movement point, or are given a movement rating per offensive value on the card. So from 1 to 3, they cannot really move a lot on their own unless it's using railroads, and there's definitely a clear focus on the use of amphibious assaults and transporting across the sea, because in the case of this unit, if they weren't to be able to move using that railroad that is quite clearly on the map there, a mountain terrain requires 3 movement points to move into. So basically, if they had this card, they could move 1 hex. A lot of the terrain on the map is mixed, which requires 2 movement points. So there's not going to be large, long distance land marches. A lot of the movement will be through or across the sea using amphibious assaults, or across rail hexes, which is why things like the Kwai River Bridge are very important. So that's the movement. In this case, the carriers and the battleship may move 18 hexes, and they must declare a hex 5808 Oahu in the Hawaiian Islands a battle hex. Basically, they're going to attack Pearl Harbor and all of the naval and air units that are there. The allied player does not roll during the air-naval combat segment. Usually what would happen is, in a surprise attack, there's an air-naval combat segment and a ground combat segment, but in this case there won't be a ground combat, as there are only naval ships engaging air and naval units. But in a surprise attack, the attacker goes first, and then what's left of the defender after taking those hits may return the attack. But in this case, that won't happen because the American fleet is caught completely by surprise, not expecting the Japanese attack. Therefore, they don't roll for the air-naval combat segment, and they defend at half strength, which will be painful. The US political will marker is moved to 8. At the moment, at the start of the campaign game, the US political will track is at 0 because they're currently not at war with Japan, but they soon will be, and the moment that happens, it's moved up to 8, which, is near the end. It goes up to a maximum of 10. So we're 2 points off of a maximum political will. If it ever goes down to 0, then the Japanese win immediately, as the US try and hammer out a treaty with Japan and negotiate their way out of the war. The US carriers in hexes 5410 and 5609 cannot be attacked as they're out at sea, and they must conduct post-battle movement to Oahu. Right, we'll start moving the carriers now. By the way, if I mispronounce any Southeast Asian, Chinese or Japanese or Dutch East Indies, which is now Indonesia, or Malaysian names or anything like that, I apologize, but I don't really know all of the pronunciations for all of them. I'll give it a go, and hopefully it won't be too terrible. Right, off to Pearl Harbor. So we'll play this card, pick up the fleet, and they can move 18 hexes. And I'll scoot you over to where the battle's gonna happen. Right, welcome to Pearl Harbor. The Japanese fleet is inbound, and this is 18 hexes away from where they started in Ominato. and it's 3 hexes out from Oahu, so the carriers can launch their attack from there. The battleship Hiei won't be able to provide attacking strength in this case because it's not close enough to attack, but I don't think that will really matter. Another important bit of information for the rest of the air naval battles. Just gonna put everything out here so that we can see the attacking and defending strengths. Another important thing to note, and one of the major advantages of carriers, is that if they attack at range, so from 2, 3 or even 1 hex out, in order for the defenders to be able to damage them back, they have to have sufficient aircraft or aircraft carriers to the same amount as the carriers. So if there was only 1 aircraft left that could cause damage, then it could only pick out 1 carrier to attack. So in this case, even if the American forces somehow survived unscathed and were allowed to counter attack, well, were allowed to use their defensive attack during the second part of a surprise attack naval air combat, then they'd only be able to potentially damage 2 of the aircraft carriers. They wouldn't have the strength to do that, so I don't think it would matter. In this case, we're going to roll for the Japanese air naval combat strength. Each time you start a air naval combat or a ground combat, the side, well, if it's the attacking side performing a surprise attack, they roll first. If it's a intercept, both sides roll together, and if it's an ambush, it's obviously the opposite of a surprise attack. But you roll for the effectiveness of your troops. So in this case, you're going to roll an 8. You also get +3 for surprise attack, so that's definitely more than enough. Basically, you want any result in air naval above a 6. Well, 6 or above, because 1 to 2, your naval units and your air units fight at a quarter strength, which is not good. 3 to 5, they fight at half strength, and 6 to 8 is 1 strength. A natural 9 is 1 strength, but you also cause a critical hit. I'll explain that in a second. 10 or more is also just full 1 strength, which is 100% strength value. A critical hit, which we will 1 off, means that in normal circumstances you have to damage every single unit in the air naval combat before you can destroy a unit. So they all have to take step loss before you can start taking away units. If you cause a critical hit, that doesn't matter. Basically, you can choose 1 unit and say, for instance, no, I want to cause 20 damage on that unit, and flip it to its damage side and take it away, and then use the rest of your attack strength to damage all of the other units. Right, in this case, we're going to have 36 attacking points for the Japanese versus, let's take a look, it would be 38 defense, but it's halved, so that's only going to be 19. So what shall we do with our 36 attacks? Well, I suppose we have to damage everything first, and then we'll decide what we'll destroy. So we'll take off 5 there. That's 10. That's 15, because they're at half defensive strength. And that's another 4. So that's 4, 19. And now we have another 19 to go, but unfortunately we don't have that much left. Or, well, we're going to miss, potentially lose 2, I think. So at 19, definitely destroy that one. It's also a pre-war unit, so it cannot be rebuilt. So we go from 19 to 24. I think we should destroy one of these. Obviously the US get a lot of air reinforcements, but I suppose if I can force them to take up reinforcements here, then they won't be able to use them over in Southeast Asia on the Philippines, which will mean that their air units there, unless they're pre-war air units, which I think they probably are. Oh yeah, they are, so they wouldn't receive reinforcements anyway. But which leads me to wonder, should I destroy the fleet, as they're going to be able to rebuild both of those air units anyway, so that's probably a better idea. So that was 24, that would be 28 then, and then we'll destroy the strongest one. And leaving us with 33, so there'll be 3 points left over that are wasted. Yeah, we'll see if that was a smart decision later on in the game. The US units were taken completely by surprise according to the cards, so they can't attack back, but with an attack value of 2, I don't think they'd have done much anyway. So the Japanese carriers get post-battle movement and can sail off either back to their initial port in Ominato. They have 18 hexes of movement, so we could sail back there, or we could potentially also move them down into the Marshall Islands or some other Japanese controlled base. Might just see if they can reach that there, if they can reach Jianyan, Saipan. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. They can. That's sort of a nice area because I can cover a lot of different parts, or well, basically I'm close enough to the Japanese home islands to do things up there should it be needed, but it shouldn't really. I'm also really close to the Philippines, so I could assist there in the next turn. It's also very close to Guam, obviously, and Wake Island, and it's close enough to the Solomon Islands that we could definitely use those carriers there with some good offensive cards. I think I'm going to move them there rather than back to the initial base in Ominato. That having been done, then we have to move the 2 US carriers back into Oahu. They will both, I think, be taking up a naval replacement in the next turn, in turn 2, to bring those 2 up to full strength, as there's one on the track and also they get 1 for still controlling the world. Right. Operation Z was a success for the Japanese, so we're going to remove this card from play forever and ever until I play the game again. And we'll take these and remove them as well, as they can't be rebuilt. And we'll place this bomber unit off to the side, because it can be rebuilt using the US replacements in the next turn. And now we'll scoot you back over to take a look at the next card you have to play in turn 1. So this next card, Operation number 1, Conquest of Southeast Asia, is a very, very big card. Usually if you play an offensive, even if you play it as an event, you're probably not going to be activating large amounts of HQs, but here any units within range of any Japanese HQ can be activated. That means basically all of your HQs are activated, and up to 26 units can be activated across the board, other than the carrier fleet, which we just used, as that was pointed out in the previous card. The intelligence level is still surprise attack, so that means the Japanese will still be attacking first, and any remaining defenders may then defend. We'll read through the conditions, as there's some important ones there. If the Japanese naval units enter Malaysian coastal hex, then force Z is placed in that hex during the reaction movement. I think that's one that historically happened. Well, it must be, otherwise it won't be on the card. But if I recall correctly, that was one of the only cases of a British admiral actually being killed in battle during the Second World War, or definitely one of the first. So that's something that will probably happen. No Allied air zones of influences during the offensive, but if not in a battle hex, auto participates in battles within range. Right, zone of influences is also a big one. Basically, every air fleet in the game projects a zone of influence, and that's 2 hexes out from an air fleet. So 2 hexes that way, 2 hexes that way, all the way around, and it can only be negated by another air fleet, and fighters cancel out bombers. So a bomber can't negate a fighter's zone of influence, but obviously fighters can still negate a bomber's zone of influence. 2 bomber fleets can negate each other. Carrier fleets can also negate a zone of influence, as they have inbuilt air units basically on board. That's their purpose. And another advantage of carriers is they also negate a zone of influence as they move, so they can strip away zones of influences projected by air fleets as they move past during the offensive phase towards a battle hex, for instance. So that's a way of shipping amphibious assaults through what could potentially be a zone of influence if you can't strip it away using air fleets. So that's a really important one in this case, as none of the Allied air fleets will be projecting a zone of influence, which means the Japanese units can move unimpeded. Now, the Japanese can only amphibious assault within hexes that are within 5 contiguous water hexes of a Japanese controlled port. That means you can actually amphibious assault from further out, but the end destination has to be close or within 5 hexes of another Japanese port. That's sort of, I think, trying to replicate the fact that it was obviously a big operation and they weren't certain of what the reactions would be by the Allies, if they'd react faster than expected and so forth, so they didn't want to put their troops at too much risk, which is understandable, and it seemed to work out quite well for them anyway. And then amphibious assaults to Manila, Singapore require naval escorts, and each naval unit loses 1 step prior to the battle. Yeah, I don't think that's something I'm going to risk with the Japanese. Purely on the basis of all of my naval forces on the board at the moment are pre-war units, so they can't receive replacements, and there aren't going to be a lot of replacements anyway for the Japanese. I think it would be safer to sort of scoot up Japanese land units into positions where they can assault during the next turn, and hopefully bring in air fleets and win the ground combat then. Don't think we need to really take Manila and Singapore this turn, but I would definitely like to be close to it because they're both, no, Kuantan is a strategic resource hex. Manila is a strategic resource hex as well, so that one we definitely have to take. But the hex one up from Singapore, Kuantan, is a strategic resource hex, and I thought Singapore was as well, but Singapore is just where the British Malaya HQ is, so that's also something we definitely want to destroy, but maybe not worthy of losing a step on the ship. Right, I think because of the large amount of units we have to move here, I'm sort of going to do it area per area, split it up into regions, and count out the units as we go, so that we don't go over, but also so that it remains reasonably manageable. And we'll start that off towards French Indochina and attacking into Malaya, and maybe moving a few units up towards the British in Burma, and also taking Borneo, or part of Borneo at the very least. There's a little free strategic resource hex that I can see there that is highly tempting, so we'll start off with that, and then we'll move on to the Philippines. Then I think after the Philippines we'll try and get some troops into the Solomon Islands as well and take Guam. Righty ho, I'll scoot you over to where the action is. Right, kicking off Conquest of Southeast Asia, I think we're going to start left to right in Malaya. I'll have a look at the choices there and see what I do. There's also a little bit of construction work going on behind me, so hopefully that won't be too annoying whilst I'm filming. I'll try and edit out bits that are too loud. So what I really want to do is, I think I'm definitely going to send this marine unit on board that little ship there to Miri to conquer that, so that's definitely one I'm going to activate. So I have 26 units to activate across the board. That'll be the first 2, and obviously we'll need a fair amount of units for Malaya, No, I don't think I can quite reach Singapore yet. Ideally, these units are too far away for one of them to be able to amphibious assault down there, although I suppose I could move them both by rail, but then that leaves the entire bit here open with no Japanese armies to protect it. So what I'm probably going to do is move one of these two Japanese armies, the 15th and the 38th, up towards the border with Burma, and maybe that's right then, move this unit here from Hainan, Taiwan, I suppose. Oh no, it's over there. Hainan. Down as an amphibious assault to Kotabaru. So we'll activate these two, we'll activate these two. If I do that though, obviously the Conquest of Southeast Asia card said that amphibious assaults have to occur within 5 contiguous water hexes. Well, may only amphibious assault hexes that are within 5 contiguous water hexes of a Japanese controlled port, but there's one here, so that's not a problem. So I can come down from there, amphibious assault into there, but if I do that, Forced, which is here, is going to move out there as a reaction move. That was also mentioned in the card. So we're going to need to move a battleship or something of the like down there. And to be honest, I'd pretty much like to wipe out Forced this turn. So we're going to need a bit more power. I'm going to need ships up here as well to invade the Philippines. I can't use all of them, but I will activate the Congo, and I'm going to send him down here to Kotabaru in a minute as a protection for that amphibious assault. And then we'll also activate this air army here so that they can participate in the air naval combat against Forced out of Singapore. Right, let's start moving. Now, which unit? I'm gonna take this one down to Kuala Lumpur, I imagine. So, transport routes or trans routes or rail routes are half a movement point each if you move through them, and obviously because it's a free offensive card, land units have free movement points, so that will be 1, 2, 2.5 down to there. Oh no, wait, I'm missing 1, no, 2, 2.5. Okay, I'll slot them in there. Could I declare that a battle hex this time? No, probably not, because I'd need a movement point to get in there, plus an air unit. And then this one, we're going to move up as far as we can. That's a jungle hex, which is 2 movement points. But if I move up to here, that's 1, or even up to here, that's 1 or half. And then I can use 2 to slot it in there, generally protecting that area. And then that's still within 4 movement points of a HQ for supply reasons, so that should be for overland supply. That should be okay. Right, now first we're going to move the Congo down to protect the amphibious assault. sail them down to there. That's definitely going to be within 15 hexes. Oh, I'm mucking things up now. Yep. And we also have the air fleet ready to help completely obliterate Force Z, hopefully. And now we'll spend one of our amphibious transport points, as that's a one-step or a reduced unit. If it was a big unit like this, one of these two-step units, then it would take 2 points to amphibious assault. We'll probably be doing some of that for the Philippines. Anyway, and we'll sail it down to Cotabato. Now we're there. As a reaction move, Force Z is going to be forced to sail up there and participate in a battle which will hopefully lead to its destruction, which is one less problem for the Japanese in later turns. And finally, I'm going to use the Japanese units can, and definitely these smaller units can, well, mainly only the smaller marine style units can use their fleets as a sort of organic transport, and that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to use this fleet to transport this marine unit to amphibious assault into Miri. All of this is surprise attacks, so there aren't going to be any rolls for intercepts by the allied player, the defender, which means that most of these landings will go completely unopposed. Well, that was just a movement, but there you go. And the air force here can't fly out to help, and although it's too far anyway, I think it's only got a range of 2 extended forces, so it can do that anyway. It probably is allowed to, but that's 3 hexes out anyway, so it doesn't matter. So that's a strategic hex, which is good for Japan, and now we're going to fight this battle. So in the air naval combat phase, the Japanese Navy and Air Force are going to roll for their effectiveness. Force Z just has to endure it for the moment because it's a surprise attack, and they rolled a 7 plus 3 for surprise attack, so it's 10 or more. They're fighting at 100% effectiveness, which you'll see might have been a bit of overkill. Well, probably not if I had to completely destroy it. Is 33, so we'll take 10 off of that, leaving us with 23, and then another 10 off of that, destroying it. And it's another pre-war unit, so it will never be coming back. Right, in post-battle movement, the Congo is going to sail back. I think we'll put it here for the moment in Cameroon, so it's nearby, and I'll leave this air fleet where it was. And down here, the Mogami can also sail back and join the Congo. There we go. And I think that's going to be most of the movement for the portion of Malaya and Borneo for this turn. But that's 7 units I think we've moved now. So 19 more to go. Next up, now I think we're going to move over to Hong Kong and the Philippines. I'll start off in Hong Kong. That'll be a pretty easy one. So for Hong Kong, we'll be activating the 17th Army, and they should be, if I don't roll horrifically, strong enough. I think it might even only be a 1-step. No, it's a 2-step. So hopefully I roll well, and then yeah, hopefully I roll well. Basically, it's still a surprise attack, so we could always use an air unit to supplement it, but I get the feeling I'm going to need a lot of them for the Philippines as well. So I'll let that slide for now. We'd very much like to take Hong Kong as quickly as possible, but to be honest, I think there are big priorities in other areas at the moment. Right, so that's going to be a ground combat. It's still a surprise attack, so the Japanese 17th Army will be attacking first. And another 7. I don't think there's a modifier for surprise. No. So it's just a pure 7. And on the combat effectiveness, that says 1.5. So that's meaning that they were already strong enough to wipe out the Hong Kong unit, and that should be no problem then. And they moved in, they took the hex, and that's now under Japanese control. The Hong Kong unit, another pre-war unit, gone forever. I'm not going to put a Japanese control marker down because I think otherwise we'll end up with Japanese control markers all over the place at a certain point, and I think it's quite clear that the Japanese are in control of Hong Kong at the moment. That's what, 8 units moved now. Now we'll scoot down to the Philippines, where there will be a lot going on, no doubt. Right, what do we want to do in the Philippines? I definitely want to grab these 2 hexes, which I think we can do quite easily. Other than that, we want to take that over there, and then maybe split the Philippines in half, well, in 3 by that point. We're taking either one of these 2 hexes, but obviously definitely also want to put some damage on that naval unit in there. The less naval units survive this turn, the better for the Japanese going forward. We've already taken out 4 said. It would be nice if we could also take out this one, the US Asia fleet. So how will we go about that? It's up here. Take a look at everything here. I think the first NS, which is a Japanese marine unit, will amphibious assault into there. That'll be 1 amphibious assault point. Then this unit, we're going to try an amphibious assault into there. But then we'll definitely need enough naval and air cover to do some damage here, because I think there's also some allied air fleets in there. But there's the Takao, the Takao underneath there, so we'll activate all of those. And they're going to be attacking at half strength though. That's 11 and 12. I think we'll probably do a fair amount of damage with that. And then down here we'll try and land this unit. We'll have the Nashi go in support with it. Oh, they're out from here. Somehow they got moved. I can only imagine what tiny toddler managed that. And then there's this carrier, the usual. I'm going to use that. I'm going to activate that as well. And I'll use that to get into within 3 hexes of this US Asia fleet. We'll do some damage there. What other fleets do I have lying around? Because I definitely also want to activate that one, and I think I don't know, I kind of like the amphibious assault into there, but is that one's connected? Yeah, be better off there, and then we can build up to attack Manila. So the 19th Army into there, but we're going to need some support for that. And the Gattle, give them something to do. I'll put them on top for the moment then. Right. I think that's pretty much every unit I want to activate for the Philippines. Let's just count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, those 9 units activated. We'll start our movement. Right, so they're going to amphibious assault into there. That's going to cost me an amphibious assault one. Now this unit will sorry about the construction noise in the background, but this unit is going to cost me 2 amphibious assault points to move, and that's okay. And we're going to take the Takao with it, and we'll move up into there. This air fleet's going to stay there. They're going to participate in the air naval battle here. Did I take off those 2? No, I haven't yet. There we go. The Negato is going to sail on into here. They're going to come with it. I'll leave them on the outskirts there for the moment, so that we know that that's a battle hex as well. So after movement, we're going to have to declare battle hex. Right, the Nachi and the 16th Army, I'm going to move into here. So that is also 2 more of my amphibious assault points for this turn, but that's alright because that's what they're there for. And the usual, we just really need to move that into 3 hexes of can basically move up 1, and then it will be able to attack and hopefully damage, attack and damage the US Asia fleet. If we won't be able to destroy it though, but you know, we'll be alright with that. Right, battle hexes. That's going to be a battle hex. This is going to be a battle hex. And this is going to be a battle hex. And this is going to be a battle hex. It's a lot of battles. First up, we'll start with the air-naval combat here. That's going to be between, move those out of the way, the Japanese 5th Air Fleet and the Takao on one side, and the US 19th Air Fleet and FEAF. To be honest, I'm not sure what that stands for, but like I said, Pacific War is not exactly my greatest subject. I'll try and find that out, or you can let me know obviously in the comment section. We'll roll for the air-naval combat. It's still surprise attack, as it said on the cards, so I'm afraid the US won't get to do very much for their hopefully damaged a little bit. I rolled a rather less than spectacular 2, but you get +3 for surprise attack. And other than that, I don't think there's anything that modifies it. So that still comes in as only a 5, which is half strength. Now, they were already at half strength, and it's rounded up, I believe. So they're going to be, rather than 11, they'll be at 6, and also 6. So 12 in total. That's not really great, is it? Well, the Japanese are off to a less than spectacular start. 12 in total. Definitely going to damage this one then, as they have the higher attacking strength. Now, the advantage we have here is they can now attack back, but we'll roll it unless they, for the sake of it, but it's not really required because yeah, even with a critical, their attack strength is 6, so they can't really damage anything. So to be honest, I won't even bother rolling it. I think it's fair to say then that no matter how badly they did, the Japanese won the air naval battle, which means the amphibious assault can go through. So we'll put this unit back on top now, and this unit, the 14th Army, on top here. Right, we have a minor, little tiny problem that I'd hoped to avoid. Dice roll modifiers for ground combat. You get +2 if you're the only side with naval, which we are, but you also get a +2 if you're the only side with an air force participating, which at the moment we're not. To be honest, I should have moved that one down to there as well. And they fly back to base at the end. I think I forgot to do that last time in Malaya as well. So there's only one +2 in this case, and yeah. And I think yeah, that's just it. We'll roll. Still surprised. Oh my god. So, luckily, +2 comes out as a 3, which means they're at 100% combat effectiveness. That's a 1. If it had actually been a 1 or even a 2, they'd have been fighting at half strength, which wouldn't have been good. So, they take 10 points of damage. Now, that's not going to be enough left over. There's only 8 attack strength left over to do damage, and there's 10 defense. But, yeah, they have been hit, and they can't do any damage back. So, that all being said, I think the losing American force is going to retreat back to Manila. I'll start moving them down, as they're the only side that took a step loss in combat. They're the losers. We can fit, I think, a total of 3 air and land units in 1 hex. So one of them's going to have to retreat down a bit further, which will be this bomber, as they obviously have a better range. Although, to be honest, I'm going to put them here for the moment, but I'm not sure they can actually retreat down to them, because oh yeah, this all happened simultaneously, so they could technically, I think, retreat through the battle hexes, although I'll look it up in a minute, and then we'll see at the end of the rest of the combats whether the 19th Air Fleet or Air Wing survives, or whether they are destroyed. Now, right here, we're going to have another amphibious assault. So once again, in this case there's no air-naval combat segment. I think actually though, as there's no air-naval combat otherwise, the Nagato can use naval bombardment on the US units. They can't be completely destroyed by it because they're the last step in the hex, and you can't destroy the last step, defending step in a hex with air-naval combat. But they can be reduced, which is sort of what we want. And then this unit is going to amphibious assault into there. Let me just check that, because actually, no, they still couldn't have harmed. They're actually defending at half strength because they amphibious assaulted, so same here. But obviously, even a 2 is not going to bother them. Well, the 2 isn't going to bother them very much. Right, this time, roll for effectiveness of the ground combat, and pretty much hope that I roll fairly decently. That's a lot better. That's an 8 +2 because we're the only side with a naval unit, so that's a 9 or more, which is at 200%, so well, times 2. So they're attacking at 18, which means they're going to wipe out this unit and take the hex. The Nagato, in post-battle movement, will sail back to Japan. Same goes here for the Takao and the air fleet. There we go. And this is another pre-war unit that is never coming back. So they're off to the pile of ever-growing dead pre-war units. Then move them out of the way. The Ryuhu, I think actually they just overstack there for the moment, and then in the end you have to take steps off until you can fit stacking again. The Ryuhu is going to attack the US Asia fleet here in air naval combat. Once again, surprise! Ooh, that's a 9, which is a critical hit. Which in general means that you can destroy a unit before damaging all the other units, but in this case that's not really going to be what happens, so we don't need to worry about that. But that will be 6 damage on the USA Asia fleet. They can't really do anything back as they don't have an air force or inherent air power. It's not a carrier. There's no air fleet in the hex, so they can't actually damage the Ryuhu, which then returns nicely after its sortie back to Palau Island. So now we're going to have the Battle of Davao. Start off with the air naval step. The allied player in Davao doesn't have any air or naval support, so the Nachi can potentially reduce the defenders a step. We'll see how that goes based on my terrible rolling. Yep. And they get +3 for surprise attack, which puts it at a 4, which is at half strength, so it's not enough to do anything. Obviously, how dare I even attempt to... These are the reasons why you have to use overkill sometimes, because of terrible dice rolls. I really should have just chucked a load of air fleets in there as well. Oh well. It doesn't matter though, because the 16th Army is now going to assault into the hex through amphibious assault. Hopefully they roll better. They're the only side with a naval contingent, therefore they get +2 on their roll, and that's a 4, which is another less than fantastic roll, but it gets bumped up to a 6, which is a standard 1 times effectiveness, so they're at 100%, which means 18 versus 10. We drop this down, but there's 1 left over. However, the allied forces in Davao are the only ones that took a step loss, so they have to retreat. I suppose I'll try and scoot over here, and the Japanese will take Davao. There you go. And the Nachi can join them there. Probably be needing some more naval support sometime soon anyway. That's pretty much everything sorted out in the Philippines for this turn. Let's see how many how many units can I still move. I've moved about, if I've counted it out all correctly, so 1, 2, 3, move down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 over there. So we still have a fair amount of units that can be moved. We'll move those down to the Philippines next turn. For now, I think that's everything up there. I might scoot some air forces down as far as I can from Japan, so that we can start looking at how we're going to take things in the Marshalls and the Solomon, not the Marshalls, the Wake Island and the Solomons. And I think the next bout of units attacking is going to be down in the Solomon Islands as I try and take things like Rebel as we close in on Guadalcanal. Right, let's scoot you down there. Right, we're just gonna stay in the Philippines for a second. For all of you out there who are thinking, you madman, what are you doing? Why? I do not know, but I sent that unit in post-battle movement back to there rather than keeping him there. But that is rather important, because that cancels out the zones of influence that the Allied planes will be generating, and if I don't do that, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, supply wise and in all kinds of ways. So that's fixed. And the previously mentioned 19th Air Fleet, which I wasn't quite sure how it had to move. Obviously, if a hex is overrun as a result of a ground battle, at the end of that battle, any air fleets remaining use an emergency air movement, which means that they can just be placed in any available Allied hex within range in this case. So they can't go there because they're at the stacking limit, but they can go here, which I thought they might, but I wasn't certain. But I've checked it now, definitely going in there. And there we go. With that all said and done, and more units to move in the conquest of Southeast Asia, we're going to move down towards the various islands, where the Japanese are going to take Guam, take Rabaul, I think, and also start pressing Wake. Right, away we go. You should just about be able to see both Rabaul and Guam. And obviously we're going to be moving units out of that stack right there. The advantage we have here is that there are two of those little marine brigades and also two naval units which can be used for organic transport. So I think we'll send the Aoba to Rabaul and the Kamikaze we're going to send to Guam. So I'll move those already, as we're still working things out region by region, and it doesn't really interfere with anything else game wise. They're going to be uncontested in Rabaul, so we'll claim that, and they're also going to be uncontested in Guam, so we'll claim that. And in post-battle movement, I'm going to have to move back, set them back, and they can no, but can remain in Rabaul. We might need to reinforce that naval base at some point, as there's a likely chance of the Allies coming in that sort of direction, trying to take back any of the Solomon Islands that I take. And obviously, if we're going to push forward towards Guadalcanal with the Japanese forces, then we'll definitely need to fight out that major Pacific War engagement there. So take that away. Should I mark it Japanese control? Well, there's a unit there at the moment, but there's a good chance at some point I'm going to want to move that unit, because I don't know, do they need to be sitting there in Guam for the entire war? I could probably use them elsewhere. So I will mark it down, just so that if I do eventually move them, I don't forget that that is now in Japanese hands. Probably won't forget it, but don't worry. So put South Seas HQ back there. I think next turn, depending on how all of the Philippines works out, I might start moving some of the naval force that I sent to Saipan, Tinian, down to Truk, where they'll definitely be able to be in a better position to attack those islands, defend the Marshall Islands. Right, so that's another 4 units, and now we're going to move over to the Japanese units on Kwajalein, and there, some of those are going to take on Wake Island. I don't think I'm gonna amphibious assault Wake this turn. I have 1 amphibious movement point left, and actually I could probably use organic transport, yeah, with the naval unit stationed there. But it's a 4-6. I don't really like their odds, but what I can do is knock out the Marine Air unit this turn, and then that really sets up this unit, and maybe the other Marine unit for an assault on Wake next turn, which will more likely be successful, as if I attack with air and naval from here to Wake, I'll have a +4 on the dice anyway, and there'll be no air naval battle, so I can probably knock one off of that before the actual battle starts. Is it a 1-step? Yes. Okay, then I can't. But I should be able to build up enough superiority to take them out. Right, so in that case, the Marine unit is staying put, but we are going to move the Tenrui and the 24th Air Fleet. Just put them at the bottom there. And we're going to declare that a battle hex. Now, the 24th is going to have to attack it with extended range, as it's 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes out, and their range is only 3, but their extended range is 5. That means they'll only be attacking at strength of 5, but that's alright. I don't think the air unit that's there is really that powerful. I'm going to send them over. So the air naval unit first. Declare a battle hex, and then they've been activated and are in range, in which case they participate in the battle, but only at half strength. So I'll just get that air unit out. It has a defense of 8. Yeah, see, we're attacking with 9, so kind of lucky really that, well, in best case we're attacking with 9. We'll see how the naval combat result roll goes. As you have seen previously, I'm really, really good at those. But yeah, if I'd have just attacked with the naval unit or just with the air unit, it wouldn't have been enough anyway. Right, here we go. Surprise attack. A 3. It's a 3 plus 3 for surprise attack. So that's a 6, which is just enough to push us into 1 efficiency, which is 100%. Which means we have 9 attack versus 8 defense, and we can flip it. It's a 1-stepper. It is also a pre-war unit, so it's it's a 1-stepper and a pre-war unit, so it's taken out of the game. And we'll send both these units. Well, the 24th Air Fleet has to go back there anyway, and I think we're better off sending the 10 back there as well. So they've been moved as well now. Yep. Which I think brings me up to 23 units. Which leaves me with the ability to move another 3 units, which is probably for the best, because there are some homeland Japan units that I might want to move about a bit, get into better positions for the following turns. We'll move over there next. Also, Wake Island wise, I think that was a nice setup for an attack in the following turns. Right. So here we are, the Japanese home islands. What have we got here? 3 units left to activate. The Nagato was already activated, so they can't do anything anymore. I think the Zuiho is one I'd like to start moving. So I'll activate that. And I want to move one of those air fleets at the very least down towards the sort of truck Saipan area, well, not Wake, but Guam, that sort of thing, so that where necessary we can start building up air shields, and a 2010 unit is probably a fairly decent unit to have down there. So let's say we move the 3rd air fleet. Do we want to move any more of them? There's a lot. There's infantry units, but there are at least 2 up there. I think I might move both of these down and away. One of them can sort of occupy the area around Saipan where those carriers are. And if we can skip down near enough, I might try and get one into the location of the South Seas headquarters in truck. Okay, that's going to be our movement. I'll just move the camera down again so that you can see where they end up. Right, the Zuiho. I'm gonna stack here in Paulo Island along with the Yule, and the air fleets have 3 hops and an extended range of 4. So if I come down through Iowa, that's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. They can end up in truck. But I don't think I'm going to be able to bring the other air unit all the way down to Paulo Island, but I do want to get some units down towards the Solomon, some air units down there. So let's see. Station out of Guam, but I can't do that yet. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. We'll move them there, and then they're within a 4 hex range of the South Seas headquarters. We can move them to there, and hopefully get another free free offensive card, and then I can scoot them down to there in 3 hops or 2 hops, whatever's required, but I can get them down there in any way. That is, as far as I can tell, 26 Japanese units, and they've done a lot in this turn. I think the Japanese have made a good head start. Whether or not it was a historically good head start, I very much doubt, but you know, I gave it a go with the limited knowledge of what I was supposed to be doing and where things were supposed to end up. Yeah, we'll round off the turn now with following out of the offensive phase. You go to the political phase. The national status segment is where the various nations surrender if necessary, but there isn't anything at the moment that is required to surrender. Malaya, I have to take Kuantan and Singapore. The Philippines, I have Davao, but I also have to take Manila, so that will be the objective next turn, to force the Philippines surrender. The Dutch East Indies, there's a lot still to take, but we'll definitely be working on that. And then other than that, I don't think, well, China's definitely not going to surrender yet, nor is India, so we can push past all of that. US political will, they're at 8, and they're going to stay at 8 at the moment because they haven't been forced to lose one because of surrendering allies. They still have carriers on the map, so that's not a problem. They didn't lose any divisions or corps that they put into an offensive, so I think they're safe from any political will movements. And that leaves us to go to the attrition phase. I'll have a quick scoot around of all the units and see who's in supply, who's not, but I think a lot of them are. The allies may have more problems with that this turn than the Japanese will. We'll take a look and I'll let you know if anyone loses anything attrition wise. So, attrition phase. These are the points where it becomes quite apparent that you should really read the entire rulebook through before you start filming. It specifically states that there is no attrition phase during the course of game turn 1. So in December 1941, after all of these big battles and offensives, there is no attrition phase, so we don't need to worry about that, which means that we'll be ending the game turn here, and that will also be the end of this first video. I plan on getting back to game turn 2 hopefully sometime this week, but as you may have noticed in the video, I'd cut out a few times due to time issues. Also, we're renovating at the moment, so I had to help there and really get all of the action in short steps. where I try to do the various regions in one go, and that will pretty much be everything for me at So Much Game for now. Hope you'll join me back for turn 2, and as ever, stay safe and stay gaming.